That's what we do.
Reseal. Let's go.
I told y'all.
Shout out to Bird B.
Pay attention.
One woman is behind all this. Pull the right card, the whole house comes down.
Medellín anda preguntando por vos. Dicen que hay una mujer mafiosa en los Estados Unidos, la madrina.
After all that I have been through, I'm not gonna give it away for nothing. ¿Quieres ver qué tan puto lejos llego? Y caído en una barraca.
Pero nunca ser como ella. Se está protegiendo.
We back in the Low Key Cave, Keyshawn Nimes YouTube page, aka Mr. Low Key, and we back with another TV show review, or should I say limited series review, and we are doing Griselda Blanco, or more so Griselda, the new Netflix limited series TV show starring Sofia Vergara. I know Sofia Vergara more so for doing comedy and stuff like that. My introduction to her was off Four Brothers. But as far as Griselda Blanco, the character she's portraying, my introduction to her was off a documentary which was called Cocaine Cowboys 2. So what they did with the show, I was let down, I'm going to be honest. Because the detail and everything they had going on with that documentary, it was so much shit they could have touched on, which I don't understand why they didn't touch on those things. Or I guess the concentration was more so on her dynamics as a mother or her relationship as a leader. I'm not sure, but I feel like they could have touched on all of that. I'm not even sure why they made it a limited series and did just make it a full-out series of multiple seasons. This could have been a new Narco spinoff. I generally just don't understand the potential they had with this, the direction they could have went with this, and so much that was behind her story. I don't know why. But this ain't all around bad. It's not even necessarily bad. I just feel like they left so much out, and the fact that it being a limited series, it was rushed. But this is based around Griselda Blanco. She was a heavy drug trafficker who started to take rings around the 80s. She had been doing this since the 70s, but as far as her becoming and taking over and becoming a huge empire, it was more so going into the 80s. She even outlasted Pablo. I mean, she was doing her thing going into the 2000s, even with her being locked up or whatever. But she was a huge figure. They called her the godmother, or they even called her the Black Widow, with the numerous boyfriends or husbands that she had killed. So yeah, man, I was excited about this because once again, I got introduced to her later on by the documentary, which was an introduction to Charles Crosby, who she had a relationship with after she had pretty much got locked up or whatever. And this story right here is where I was like, why wouldn't you want to talk about this? Give or take, they probably wouldn't have had to touch on this to like maybe a season 3 or 4 or whatever. But this is on some Snowfall shit. Like, they can do a whole spinoff with just this guy's story alone, on him being, not only having her as his connect, but they was in a relationship. Like, the shit, the detail he went into, the fact that she told her pretty much her whole story, her upbringing, the fact that she said that I think she had caught her first body as a child. Not only that, this guy had a relationship with her kids. More so than anything, I think it was Michael Corleone, her youngest. And he helped he helped traffic drugs with them or whatever. Like, he was a influential part of her story, especially on the later part of her story or whatever. So I really wish they would have got into that, being that this was a limited series. And I even seen when they kind of got to the point of her going to California, which he was associated with, if I'm not mistaken, Long Beach. Either way though, that was a story in its own. That could have been a limited series by itself. But this more so is focusing on pretty much your typical rise and fall of a drug dealer. Like, this shit was generic as hell. Narcos, in the direction they went in, was more so of the detail to attention. The point of views that they got from not only the drugs dealers side, but the cop side. And even with this, where they try to do some scenarios with that, it never lines up the way that Narcos was able to do it. Like the fact that we was getting that narration that they was getting, the fact that it felt like you was watching a behind the scenes look or a documentary on actual drug dealers or the Narcos. And we didn't get that with this. This shit felt very Hollywood. It felt very scripted. And not that the acting was bad or anything, but being that you had the people behind Narcos, I was thinking we was really going to get an attention to detail type of story. Even with the Pablo Escobar story, we didn't get him in his childhood, but we got different aspects and point of views and people talking about his upbringing. We even got the dialogue with him just walking and doing certain things, and we would just get that certain detail though. With her, it's not none of that. All we seeing is her pretty much getting her get back, or seeing her getting revenge, or just pretty much seeing her rise, which we have seen multiple times. But the fact is, even when you do those type of stories multiple times, it's the way you go about telling those stories. And Narcos Mexico was able to do that with 3 seasons. The detail, that first season of Narcos, Pablo Escobar ain't got shit to do with the 3rd season. It was fine. It's the story, man, and the fact that her reign was longer than Pablo's. She was 70s going into the 2000s. Like, it's so much shit y'all could have done with her. So I didn't understand why they wouldn't necessarily take the time to flush out this story instead of making it a limited series and feeling very rushed through. And as far as even the actress playing her, nah, she didn't look like her. I'm gonna just tell you, Sofia Vergara was good in the role, and I feel like it was one of those situations like with a movie like Get On Up, when you had, rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman, and him playing James Brown, but him kind of not necessarily all the way looking like James Brown, with him able to pull out those mannerisms of James Brown. I feel like that's what Sofia Vergara did for Griselda. So with all that being said, her not necessarily, I would say, looking like her, this show more so is showing you the aspects of her leadership roles, and the fact that she wasn't your typical queen pin or big drug trafficker. As far as the people that work for her, she made them feel equal. Those people feel like they could be her, or they felt like family, or like they was her children. That was more so of why she even got the nickname the Godmother. As far as anybody that was under her, you was pretty much treated like you were one of hers. And even that whole scenario with the relationship with her sons, and showing just how much she loved her kids, even though the shit she was doing to other people's families, and the stuff they wouldn't do. Narcos, man, I gotta keep going back to Narcos, because we got these different levels of Pablo, showing how he was a very charismatic person, a man of his country, a man of his family, but not only that, how ruthless he was, the shit he would do to people in their families. We got some moments with her in those times where they didn't stick to grounding when they got there. This was all about her, and the whole thing with her being a woman. I'm telling you, and we get that aspect because it's the whole thing with, you have a woman in this position of power with all these men in these positions of power, and it kind of did remind me of the situation with American Gangster. And I like that though, because it was the whole thing with, you telling me this black guy, you telling me Frank Lucas, he ain't got no plug, he ain't got nobody he working for, he's the guy. I don't believe it. And I'm talking about how the movie presented it, because it's like, this black man ain't doing all of this by himself. He got to have some type of help. That's kind of where I feel like they didn't necessarily stand their ground with that with Griselda, because it was the whole thing with, you telling me this woman got in this position of power, and I feel like they wanted to focus really on that, as far as how did this one woman get to this position of power. And they did do a good job with that, I feel like, because they showed you how people didn't fear her necessarily outside of her opposition, but it was more so the people that worked with her, how they feel like they was a part of something. Because her whole movement was getting the people who was basically the workers, the people who felt degraded or demeaned, the people who felt like they were trash or they wouldn't necessarily didn't have no meaning of life. Those were the people that felt like that she was going after, and she put in position to want to work for her, to want to die for her. And you could see that's how she was able to get to where she was able to get, because she was somebody who wasn't pushing people down. She didn't kill the people that worked for her. She lifted those people up pretty much. So with all of that we was getting, the relationship with her I guess when I say her main husband, who ended up turning was like her bodyguard at first, somebody who was pretty much supposed to kill her, but it was the way they flipped that because once again they called her the Black Widow, and we didn't necessarily get like emphasis on that until the end of the show, where she ended up, you know what I'm saying, taking out one of her husbands or the husband or whatever, because we didn't never necessarily get her in multiple relationships outside of the first situation with her husband, who she did kill. But the fact that she was called the Black Widow, and we knew she had multiple situations with people that she was involved with that she killed, we didn't get none of that either. That's what I'm saying. We didn't get none of that. All we were getting was the rise of this woman who was able to take over. We didn't get the connection with her and the Medellin cartel, which I think she was supposed to be a part of. We didn't get none of that. It's so much shit here that you could have lined in. And I think another thing is the way they did with Narcos Mexico, when you had Pablo come in because of that connection with the Medellin cartel and the Ciola, pretty much El Chapo's cartel, and how that connection came about. Why we didn't get none of that was this. It was like these guys pretty much got a check and said, we want y'all to make this show about Griselda. They was like, all right, we'll do it. We don't want to do like a multiple season, but we'll do it. I don't know, man. There was a lot of potential behind this, and it should have been multiple seasons. It should have just been flushed out, because she almost, I would say, somewhat has maybe a more interesting story than Pablo Escobar, because the fact that her reign lasted longer than his. I don't know, man. Especially with the situation between her and Charles and their relationship. Even if you don't want to necessarily go from the point of view of her, you can do it from the point of view of him. And even with the relationship with her sons were out here very active when she got locked up, and even kind of before she did. We could have got a lot of those situations and those dynamics and those stories, man, that they just didn't touch on. She got a lot of history behind her. But overall, as far as what they did, they just came from more so a vulnerable part of her, because you can see a lot of moments in here where it's like she's not in like a position of power, and you can see like she's almost lost. Probably going into the later parts of the episodes, probably I would say episode 5 and 6, especially 5, and where you can see that downfall, and that whole episode is pretty much her downfall. And I'm like, so you telling me her downfall was crack? Because it's just soon as we get to this moment where she ends up smoking some crack with this other female, everything just goes off then. Everything just pretty much goes crazy then. And I'm like, so this is where she pretty much loses her shit? That was it? That was it? It makes me want to go get more information, look up the story, because I know that wasn't just it. I know it was. It ain't no way. But I am trying to figure. I just wish they would maybe come back, which I know they probably not, but that's just some of the main things, is trying to see or figure out why they weren't necessarily going into detail about everything she went through as far as the multiple relationships, and outside of that, the connection with the Medellin cartel, even having a cameo from Pablo Escobar. One of the opening lines to this series is Pablo saying the only man I ever feared was a woman, Griselda Blanco. Why we didn't get but overall, man, it was a decent series. It ain't something I'm probably gonna go back to, because like I said, it's just so much I feel that's left out that we didn't get, all the way going into even the ending where they just completely skip the prison shit. Like, we get her going in doing the time, but they on some time jump shit. It's like 8 to 7 years later. All the stuff that she had going on in between, the fact that they tried to prosecute her multiple times while she was locked up because she still had certain shit going on, we didn't get none of that. And this whole dynamic between the cops and her, that shit was no, I did not like the cops. And it was the fact that we didn't get enough between them. Even though in the original Narcos, it wasn't like we had dynamics between Pablo and the guy that was doing the narration, but it was the fact that we was able to get so indulged with their case and them going after Pablo. It was reminding me of The Wire. I feel like Narcos definitely had those moments of The Wire where we got multiple points of views as far as the law, the governments, and all of that. That's another thing. The fact that we didn't necessarily get the cause and effect of what this was having on the Miami or Colombia and everything that was going on with the murders and the drugs and what they did with the Narcos episode, and once again showing you like that documentary type style point of views. That's all I'm saying, man. I just wish we'd have got a little bit more with this, Cause outside of her not looking like her, she definitely was doing her acting. She was acting her ass off. And even everything that we had with the side characters, everything, I like some of those moments. But we got 2 seasons of Narcos where I feel like everything they did in it, this shit just like, it was watered down. Because we got so much with that in those 2 series. And then the spin-off, Narcos Mexico, this shit was just watered down. But anyway, man, y'all let me know how y'all feeling about this. If y'all know the history behind Griselda Blanco, did y'all plan to check out the show? Have y'all checked it out? Because there's other documentaries out here, and I think they even got other shows on Tubi and shit. But being that Netflix is who they are, I'm like, damn. And Narcos, like I said, I was really looking forward to this. So y'all let me know how y'all feeling about this, man. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Other than that, man, we out.